BRB. You'll never know how much I really love you. Alcoholism, bass players, Ireland.
Hey there, I'm John Auer.
I'm Ken Stringfellow.
And I'm Matt Harris.
And we are the Posies, and we're here at Wolfgang's Vault, playing a song called So Caroline.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Can't make another history choice. I don't want to decide. I don't want to get stuck where the yearbooks reside. So, Caroline, you'll be the only friend of mine, close enough to remain tethered in time. So, Caroline, you'll be the only friend of mine. I keep dreaming of a map of the world. I keep searching the sky. I keep seeing the traffic signals passing me by. So, Caroline, you'll be the only friend of mine, close enough to remain tethered in time. Ain't it so, Caroline? You'll be the only friend of mine. And with friends like you, who needs anyone else? With friends like you, took a second glance like a fighting chance when I heard your name. Such a singular favor to return, then begin again. So, Caroline, you'll be the only friend of mine, close enough to remain tethered in time. So, Caroline, you'll be the only friend of mine. Ain't it so, Caroline? You'll be the only friend of mine, close enough to remain tethered in time. Ain't it so, Caroline? You'll be the only friend of mine.
All right, the next song we're gonna pull off here is called "Plastic Paperbacks," and we came here to San Francisco to drop off the royalties for this one, so you'll see why. 3, 4. Once I had money, but now I'm so far from home. Once I was loved by a woman, but now there's nothing but cold stone. I was hard, man. What was there to understand along that wind? Were you searching for the start of sin? Journeys taken in search of that terrible eye. Turned over horizons under which no sun wants to lie. But that trust which comes into the thick of it, I got that back with a stack of plastic paperbacks. But to love you, oh, to love you, but to love you, oh, to love you. One by one I press those letters in your hand, like a Gutenberg Bible burning at midnight on the sand. You've been upheld where innocence has never dwelt, but that's alright. There's a Bible burning, giving light. Oh, like to love you. Anthracite, the cold black flames, we've been burning plastic paperbacks again. Oh, that's reverb, man. Oh, it goes on forever.
Yeah, that stairwell is awesome.
Continuing bravely through the storm, we will now perform Licenses to Hide. Who's got into that 80s radio? I've said it for some time now. Said we should set it for some time now. Who's going for that carbon dating now? Feeling so old, barely a teenager years, but over so old. But let's not forget the lives of lovers laid into your life, as life continues on despite of licenses to hide. Oh, those licenses to hide. What dynamic could heal the damage that you did in your life
and paint the virgins white?
Or not quite. What did you learn from early insolence? The season that never ends. Deadly and serious as this we could depend on. When we stop those adolescent trends, it's funny till it can bend. Then when it breaks, it can be funny again. But let's not forget we're oh, it's so funny when we get undressed. But darling, you could use just a little less of all those licenses to hide. Oh, those licenses to hide. Oh, I admit and I say it now that I love you. I love you. Fears, storms, and endless invasions, but I'm here with you. But let's not forget we've all recovered plenty of composures, and now it's time
to hide. Oh, those licenses to hide. Oh, those licenses to hide.
What dynamic could heal the damage that you did in your life? Or paint the nighttime white? Oh, not quite.
Well, I'm glad we finally got out of Wolfgang's stairwell back into the vault
It's all Wolfgang's fault.
for this final number called the Glitter Prize. Oh, Isabella, it's starting to snow, and I wanna know when it covers the ground. So send me a message, show me a sign, radiate in time to the shimmering sound. Daylight, I'm ready for daylight. I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. It's never enough to be given it all when you're drawn by the call of the siren you serve. Now there's promise for keeping and miles to go before the sunrise show that I wanna see, I wanna deserve. Daylight,
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready for daylight.
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready to praise your heaven skies when the curtains rise. Daylight,
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready to play right.
Ready to play.
I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. Every time, every time, every time you're around.
Daylight, daylight.
Every sight, every sound, every time you're around. Fireworks reflecting on your icy flow, like a fever below, and I can't break free of the glow and the gleam. Touché, Isabella, you were always the queen of the dramatic scene. Now I wanna shout, I wanna scream. Daylight, I'm ready for daylight. I'm ready to praise your heaven skies when the curtains rise. Daylight, I'm ready to play right. I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. Daylight,
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready for daylight.
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready to praise your heaven skies when the curtains rise. Daylight,
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready for daylight.
Ready for daylight.
I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize, for the glitter prize, for the glitter prize, for the glitter prize.
Hi, I'm Angie with Card Addy Magazine, and I am here with Ken Stringfellow and John Auer of the Posies. So you guys just put out a new record in September, and that was your first album in 5 years. And you've been really, really busy with other projects. What was the impetus behind doing a new Posies album at that time?
Well, we would have done it sooner, really. Just like you mentioned, we have other projects and things going on, and we finished up the touring. We toured a lot for the last Posies album, Every Kind of Light, which came out in 2005. We toured. We played hundreds of shows, literally. And when that was done, we were like, okay, let's just take a little break here and catch up on some things that we couldn't do, at the same time, obviously. And all of a sudden, it was like, zip. It was 2009. We're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that was our break. So
yeah, we didn't plan it that way. It just kind of happened,
Mm-hmm. What are some of the themes behind this particular album?
Well,
is that a very general question?
It's a general question. I mean, I think there's definitely. I hate to use the word maturity because it often implies old and boring.
American maturity.
But I don't know. This record we actually kind of. I don't know. It's probably our most sophisticated, dare I say, piece of work. It has some of things you might expect from the Posies, and then there's some things that are so far off the map from anything that we've done before and then somehow we kind of balanced both of those things. I think pretty well, actually.
We tend to write our lyrics pretty much in dream speak. So I mean, there's opacity is like kind of one of our trademarks. So the themes, they're kind of slippery. I mean, there's looking at it now, there's quite a lot of kind of existential, where am I, who am I, where are we going kind of things, which that's a typical midlife kind of contemplation, so not a shocker there. But there's also just, I mean, it's kind of like, here we are in San Francisco. There's a psychedelic thing in there, where things can be really heavy and really playful at the same time, kind of juggling that kind of dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
That's typical Posies, circa 2010.
Well, this is the first album since '96 is that you guys wrote your material in advance of the sessions. What was kind of the songwriting process behind this album?
kind of more like the traditional way we used to do it. I mean, you're right, because the record that we made before we broke up in 1998 was this record called Success, and
kind
it was
an odds and sods.
Yeah, it was just a collection of things. It was literally a bunch of leftover stuff. And then 2005, we made this record called Every Kind of Light that we made up in the studio because, well, we had 2 weeks to make a record, and that was our only choice, basically.
Once again, the other projects thing, I mean, we were making tons of records in other bands all at that same time, and we had sort of I mean, we didn't really know where things were going with our band either, and kind of got back on this kind of let's see what happens basis. But that meant that we had to squeeze it in amongst some other recordings, and so yeah, we didn't have a composition and trade demos time for this record.
Which is what we did this go around. We kind of went back to the old school method of actually writing songs before you go into the studio, and something else we did, which is kind of unusual for us, is we actually rehearsed before we went into the studio, which actually ended up being really necessary and also pretty amazing because we put a lot of work into it. Yeah, it really did. It worked out well this time.
When did you guys decide to record in Spain? And you guys lived together during the recording sessions, right? So what was that experience like?
Well, Matt has this mansion, our bass player has this mansion in the south of Spain, and he said, come on down. And
well, we picked the studio for kind of its, the fact that it was an all-in-one place and you can live there and they cook for you and all this kind of stuff. And the atmosphere is just really chill, as we say. It's Andalusia, south of Spain, so it's very sunny and nice. And the studio is really cool and full of, dumpy, dusty old gear that sort of works. And
crazy, weird instruments.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So, and there's nothing around this. It's not really, it's near the town of El Puerto de Santa Maria, but it's not really in the town. So there's no restaurants, no bars, no shops or anything around. In fact, there's hardly any houses around. there's a lot of like kind of scrubby, empty lots around the little compound where this is, and so there was no activity
Totally
other than
immersed
just
in the
wake
project.
up, record, and drink wine and go to bed, repeat. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we
That's
slept
really cool.
we slept in an apartment that was 30 feet from the studio door.
Nice.
30 drunken steps from the
How convenient. It's one step too many. Should have been 29.
So you guys started the Posies in 1988 when you guys were teenagers. What are some of the ways you've adapted to all, as working professional musicians, some of the ways you've adapted to all the changes that have occurred over the past 20 years?
Well, we spend so much less time treating our acne. It just frees up the day for creativity. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, there's this thing called the internet that's wasn't around when we started, which is kind of dates us, obviously. And, I mean, that's a godsend. I mean, if we'd had the internet when we started out, we would have totally utilized something like that. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know this about the Posies, but we were very much a real do-it-yourself band. I mean, my father, back in the 80s, put a modest but powerful little home recording studio in what was essentially the rec room of our house. And that's where we made the first Posies record when we were teenagers. And, I mean, we were total geeks for recording. We weren't even like a band at that point. It was just Ken and I writing songs, recording, blah, blah, blah. And we actually made this demo tape that became our first record. And we actually were do-it-yourself enough to, make cassettes of this record and go sell them to record stores, like, on foot, out of backpack, basically. And I guess my whole point with this is, we really could have used the internet back then. I mean, you had to leave your house to promote yourself, back then. But, now you can just sit around and tap away.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
No cell phones.
Yeah.
Back then there's lots of going on tour without a GPS.
Yeah.
And without a
tricky,
cell phone
I'm
to call
sure.
the club when you're lost. This is all quite interesting.
Yeah.
We had to, in fact, I remember on early tours, we would go to AAA and have them print us out route maps.
That's totally true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you couldn't there was no internet to go do that and no MapQuest.
Or cell phone to call if you get lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, this is probably a question you've been asked many times before, but I'm very curious. On those early recordings, what are some of the early bands that really influenced your sound that you kind of grew up listening to? Besides the Beatles.
Well, yeah, the Beatles is always an obvious one.
The Slits.
Perennial favorite. Skinny Puppy, believe it or not.
Plasmatics.
Let's see. I gotta say, in all seriousness, the Replacements.
Yeah.
Actually, anything from Minneapolis at that point, really, we were into,
Yeah.
right?
Husker Du.
Like Husker Du and Replacements, we worshipped. As we also did a band from England a little band called the Smiths, too, were a huge influence.
You can hear that a lot on our first album,
Yeah,
actually.
it's totally true.
What's some of the work that you guys did with Big Star? I'm really curious about that project with Alex Chilton.
Well, when we were basically kind of like two hired guns to fill out, what was left of the original Big Star that wanted to be a part of Big Star when Big Star was asked to reform for one show, basically. See, and we ended up with the gig, a long story short, and spent 17 years playing with them. And
Yeah. I mean, Big Star had it was always a pretty volatile band, and of course they had the fact that they didn't achieve really anything other than making great records in their original run. They had all these business problems and just a band with great potential that just didn't see that potential until way later.
Right.
The band sort of disintegrated as soon as it started in a way. Chris Bell quit after the first record, and then Andy Hummel quit after the second record, and so it ended up as a two-piece. Chris Bell died in 1978. Andy Hummel, finished his engineering degree and went to go build fighter airplanes. So Alex and Jody, Alex kind of just basically forgot about Big Star from that point on. And when that show happened in 1993, a show that nobody imagined would have happened. Nobody
Where was it?
imagined. What was that?
Where was the show?
The show, of all places, it was the brainchild of these two students at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and they decided for their spring fling, they had like an arena at the university rented out for a Bryan Adams concert. And in the parking lot, they said, well, let's put some other bands on. What could be interesting? And these two kids were like, what about Big Star? And they found Jody, who's not that hard to find, as he was kind of the PR face for Ardent Studios, the recording studio where Big Star made all their albums. And that's how we found Jody, because we wanted to work there too, because of Big Star. And Jody said, well, sure, I'd be happy to, but call Alex. And knowing, quote unquote, that Alex would say no, never in a million years. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll play.
Just luck of the draw, really.
And then they're like, oh,
We're playing
crap,
with
this is really going to
Ashton,
happen. So where do we get a band?
Yeah, we got to find some people to play with now and make it actually happen. So.
And that's where we came in. Long story short, there's a lot more to it than that.
There was like a short list of people. I mean, Paul Westerberg was on the list, Matthew Sweet, Chris Stamey, potentially Mike Mills. But long story short, we ended up getting the gig.
Cool.
So.
And it's been almost 2 decades playing with Alex until Alex passed away this year.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the Posies, when you guys disbanded in 1998, did you know? Was there a part of you that knew that it was not quite over?
No, we were quite certain it was. We were done. We were out of enthusiasm for the project.
Absolutely.
And sort of things had just kind of reached a dead end in many ways. I have to say that I kind of it's not even kind of. I definitely can't imagine like making records in 2010 with the lineup that we had in 1998. As great as Joe Skyward and Brian Young are as people and musicians, I can't imagine growing in the same way that we've grown. And now we have, we've been playing with Matt Harris on bass and Darius Manuel on drums for almost 10 years, and that seems to me to be the ideal configuration for this band. The vision is a lot more cohesive as far as what we're all into, i.e. Rush. And it just works personality-wise and everything. Our band is odd because we started out as this DIY project that was a duo, and that demo that we made in 1988 became our first album, and it totally took off and caught us totally by surprise. And we hadn't played a live show, we hadn't done anything, and so we were always kind of scrambling to find people to help us and to who shared that vision. And we always had like kind of solutions that were kind of they almost worked in a way, but I think, and they some brilliant work came out of it and some brilliant shows came out of it, but it's nothing like what we've been doing for the past 10 years, which is just way more what a band should be.
Right.
People who share a vision but with distinct personalities.
And Ken talks about not being able to be as creative with that lineup in 2010. I'd have to include our 1998 versions of ourselves in that
Also
too.
true.
Right.
We just it was pretty brutal at the end. You're talking to a couple of guys that grew up together and then spent way too much time together, and then of course you're being creative all the time and you're promoting all the time, and just too much togetherness. It was a inevitable recipe for implosion. Totally. Eventually. And you look in hindsight, it's just like any long-term relationship, whether it's a band, friendships, romantic relationships. It's about the peaks and valleys. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I don't know, we did spend a couple years apart, and then we had this this project we had to work on together. It was a box set that we did, which is arguably the final nail in any band's. The greatest hits in the box set, right? Those are the things that are like the last things you do as a band. And for the box set, we had to go through, like, no pun intended, boxes and boxes of photos and old tapes and
Side by side?
pretty much. We actually got together and did it in
it's a 50-track box set or whatever, and we had to sit in a mastering studio.
There's no way we could
for days.
We
to
couldn't
put it
avoid
together.
each other. We had to kind of confront each other, and I don't know. We actually had a really good time. We laughed a lot and told stupid jokes and thought, hey, there might still be something to this, and just step by step, it all kind of grew back into being something that we actually spent a lot of time doing now.
I would think that you would need that perspective anyway, after all that time, to really step
Absolutely.
away from it. And
It's looking in hindsight, it just seems like it was part of the script now.
Right.
Yeah, if we could have said let's take a break, but it just didn't seem like that.
Exactly.
In reality, that's what it
Sometimes you
was.
got to say something is put a finality to something to actually really appreciate it too.
Right.
I think.
I'm sure that contentions
know?
also kind of helped build your creative catalog, you know?
It's
Having
it's
some of that,
possible.
yeah.
It's possible.
Maybe.
Really?
So you guys
Waiter,
are...
check please.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can move on from the... When you guys were not getting along. You guys are finishing up your tour this month. What are your plans for next year?
Ooh, well,
I hope it happens.
yeah. I hope next year happens.
Yes.
No,
It's very close. It's very...
you know, we never know.
2011
That
has a nice
calendar
ring
could be
to
like
it.
a year
Yeah.
or so off. So, we'd like to hit some European festivals next summer. That's kind of a must do, and those offers are starting to happen a little bit.
There's
You
a
know,
place I'd really like to go. I've heard we might go that you were talking about.
Oh yeah, we were talking about
Yeah.
we're working on our first South American tour.
Cool.
That should be really great. I've been doing.
It's exciting.
You know, it's been really rough. I had to go down to, Peru and Chile to do some research and,
It's
make some
tough.
contacts. So it's been really, it's very stressful.
Did you bring my machete back with you?
No, I had to
Okay,
use it.
all right. I'll
There's
get
one
another
promoter
one.
we won't be working with since he doesn't have arms anymore.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Who is it? Just kidding.
But, no, yeah, it's, there's, things, I think the record has life in it, I mean, I've been following, I have my Twitter feed, searching for the Posies all the time, and I can see when we get played on the radio when radio stations tweet that, and there's some radio stations in Europe that are just flogging this record really hard, and that's great.
You guys have a good market in Europe, it seems like.
Yeah,
And we like
the
Europe
press on this album
ourselves,
has been
too.
amazing, really. I mean,
Especially in
I
the
think we got the
UK.
best reviews we've ever gotten.
Oh, that's great.
Except in the East Bay Express today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guy there is he's one of these guys that's like a power pop nerd who loves our kind of Beatles-like stuff from the early days, and he was like, they experiment, but they really shouldn't experiment. That's just not what they should be doing. They should do what they do best. I'm like,
Posies make hamburgers. Now they're making Thai food. Can they just make hamburgers again?
and I was
Yeah.
like, thanks for telling us what we can and can't do after 20 records, 20
Seriously.
years and 8 records.
Yeah.
I tore him a new one on every social media possible. This guy's probably not going to want to be on the internet for a couple days.
Right. I was going to say, it's probably hard. I mean, at what point do you stop reading the press? Or, it's hard not to keep up on it, but...
Well, you can't please everybody. Shouldn't
Right,
try.
of course.
I mean, but it's okay to get pissed off about it too sometimes.
I love to flame. It's
Totally.
It's one of my biggest tension
And
releases.
now there's a great outlet for it too. It's called the internet.
Nice. You're very much allowed to get pissed.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So
Sweet.
thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, it was great.
right.
So I think that's it.